Welcome back to Book Summary 5. I'm Sammy, and today, Carl and Princess Donut discover that surviving the dungeon is no longer just about killing monsters. Now they have to survive bad contracts, scripted television dramas, magical cults, murderous clowns, and one explosion powerful enough to level an entire city. This is Carl's Doomsday scenario by Matt Dinniman, the second book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. The story begins as Carl, Donut, and Mongo enter the third floor. The first two levels were only training. Now the crawlers must choose permanent races and classes, decisions that could determine whether they survive the rest of the dungeon. Donut refuses to become anything other than a cat. For her class, she secretly chooses former child actor, a flexible but unpredictable option that allows her to select a temporary specialty on every floor. More importantly, it includes the manager benefit. This permanently attaches Mordecai to Donut's team. He can now communicate with them freely, appear in their safe rooms, create potions, and offer advice that was previously restricted. Mordecai is furious because Carl and Donut manipulated him into the role, but his knowledge may be their greatest advantage. Carl chooses to become a primal, keeping his human appearance while unlocking the potential to raise his skills beyond their normal limits. His new class is Compensated Anarchist, a combination of hand-to-hand fighter, bomb maker, trap specialist, and professional troublemaker. It is a risky build. Carl begins weaker than many other crawlers, but if he survives long enough to develop his skills, he could become incredibly powerful. The third floor is called the Overcity. It resembles an enormous ruined civilization built inside a volcano, with villages scattered between abandoned streets. Monsters become stronger at night, shops and guilds finally appear, and the dungeon introduces quests. But quests come with a warning. Many of them are not natural events. They are carefully produced stories created for the alien audience, complete with writers, recurring characters, and planned dramatic arcs. The crawlers are not always the heroes of these stories. Sometimes they are just disposable guest stars. Carl and Donut discover this when they encounter Grimaldi's traveling circus, a nightmare filled with knife-throwing lemurs, enormous clowns, mutated animals, and magical artillery. They also meet Zarina Signet, a powerful tattoo-covered summoner who attacks the circus every night. She claims she wants to free her former family from Grimaldi, the circus's transformed ringmaster. Carl quickly learns that Signet is not trustworthy. She places Donut under a magical sleep and forces Carl to help her. To summon her tattoo army, she needs a blood sacrifice, so Carl is sent into battle against Heather, an elderly roller skating bear infected with parasitic worms. During the fight, Carl accidentally discovers something important. Healing the infected bear destroys the parasites controlling her, briefly restoring the real Heather before she dies. That gives Carl an idea. Grimaldi is not merely running the circus. He has become a giant pestiferous vine connected to every infected performer. He keeps them alive and resurrects them whenever they die because he cannot accept losing his family. Signet believes the only answer is to destroy him. Carl chooses another path. He enters the circus, poisons Grimaldi's root system, and deliberately infects himself with the same worms controlling the performers. A protective spell prevents the parasites from completely taking over his mind, allowing Carl to communicate directly with Grimaldi. Instead of defeating the city boss through brute force, Carl forces Grimaldi and Signet to confront the truth. They both claim to be protecting their family, but their endless war has only prolonged everyone's suffering. Grimaldi finally releases Signet from exile and allows her to enter the circus. Carl completes the quest without destroying either of them. It is a major turning point. Carl realizes the dungeon's stories can be manipulated. The producers may control the stage, but if he understands what their audience wants, he can sometimes force them to accept a different ending. After rescuing Donut and Mongo, the group travels toward a larger settlement. There, they meet Katia Grimm, a crawler connected to Hekla's powerful group of female warriors. Katia is shy, awkward, and severely underleveled. She appears human, But she is actually a doppelganger who has trouble controlling her face and body. Her monster truck driver class gives her incredible constitution and defensive abilities, but very little confidence. Hecla asks Carl and Donut to help her gain experience. Donut immediately welcomes Katia into the royal court, and Carl reluctantly agrees. What begins as a temporary arrangement slowly becomes something more. Katia is not just extra protection. She becomes another person Carl feels responsible for keeping alive. Their new settlement hides another disturbing mystery. Women have been disappearing, only to return at night as flying monsters. Carl, Donut, and Katia investigate a group of fanatical elves, a corrupt official named Miss Quill, and an undead skyfowl called Remex. The truth is far worse than they expected. Miss Quill has been transforming vulnerable women into obedient creatures while using their deaths to power a massive soul crystal. Her goal is to complete an inherited magical spell that will kill nearly everyone in the Overcity while protecting the skyfowl. Carl's team stops the spell, preventing a genocide. But breaking ancient magic has consequences. The dungeon announces a new event quest. The interrupted spell has destabilized the soul crystal, and an explosion will destroy everything within 45 kilometers. Dozens of crawlers are trapped inside the blast zone. Carl is given a choice. He can escape with Donut and leave Katia and the others behind, or risk everything trying to save them. This time, even Donut knows there is only one real answer. Carl returns to the crystal and traps it inside a rare protective case. When the magical explosion begins, he pulls the entire device into his inventory. The system names his creation Carl's Doomsday scenario. It is an unstable explosive, powerful enough to destroy a city. The moment Carl ever removes it from his inventory, it will detonate almost instantly. They survive the first explosion, but a second wave of uncontrolled magic is coming. Magical equipment begins malfunctioning. Weapons activate by themselves. Armor disappears. Potions trigger without warning. Carl, Donut, Katia, and the surrounding crawlers race toward the nearest staircase. Donut is forced to remove her beloved crown before the magic destroys it or permanently damages her. It disappears, but she remains part of the Blood Sultanate's royal succession, meaning the dangerous consequences waiting on the 9th floor are still very real. Before descending, Katia triggers the explosives Carl planted inside the settlement's warehouse. The blast releases the souls stored within the remaining guards and weakens the final magical eruption, saving thousands of NPCs and several crawlers. Carl, Donut, Mongo, and Katia descend together. On Odette's show, they learn that Borant used a veto to deny them the powerful reward they should have received. Once again, the people running the dungeon change the rules to avoid paying the price. But they cannot erase everything Carl accomplished. The explosion killed enough enemies to send Carl and Donut soaring through multiple levels. Katia gains even more, finally catching up with the team. Carl and Donut also enter the dungeon's top 10 leaderboard. They may have lost the official reward, but they have become stronger, more famous, and much more dangerous. The biggest change in Carl's Doomsday scenario is that Carl stops behaving like someone who is merely trying to survive. He begins studying the dungeon as a system. He learns how the quests are written, how the audience can be manipulated, how the rules contain loopholes, and how every attempt to control him can become another weapon. At the same time, his family is growing. It is no longer only Carl and Donut. There is Mongo, the increasingly dangerous velociraptor. There is Mordecai, their furious but invaluable manager. And now there is Katia, who enters the royal court needing protection but may eventually become one of its strongest members. Carl still cannot defeat the people who built the dungeon, but he can ruin their plans, expose their lies, and make survival much more expensive than they expected. And sitting inside his inventory is a bomb capable of rattling the teeth of a god. That was Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman. I'm Sammy, and this was Book Summary 5. Until next time, happy reading.